new idea and you publish it and you have to be given correction here and there from the experts ambao wako in the same field that you are in. So it's not something that is very easy. So amepitia kwa mikono ya expert, amepitia kwenye moto. Ni kama dhahabu ambayo imepitishwa kwa moto, and he has come out as a fine thing. So so much congratulations to him in his absentia. So we appreciate him for the kind of work and the kind of dedication he has put in that hiyo masomo ambayo alikuwa anasoma. So apokee congratulations zetu wherever he is. So leo ningependa tuangalie kitu ambacho you can call it how the Bible gives leadership in proving itself reliable. Yani Biblia, vile Biblia imekuwa compiled na Mungu mwenyewe, because you know that God is the one who gave the inspiration for the Bible to be written, and how it has been imekuwa consistently reliable over the time. And the first thing nataka tuangalie, the first point ni the Bible imeandikwa, let me say it and then I'll explain. It has been written over many years by many people and in different areas. Iliandikwa, unajua Biblia is a compilation of very many books, vitabu kadhaa, 66 of them. Na imeandikwa na watu close to 40. Na imeandikwa in very different areas. As you know, kuna zile ambayo ziliandikwa within Asia, Europe, na zingine hata Africa. The context is equal broad. So when you look at the Bible, maybe from the book of Isaiah, chapter 7, verse 14, inasema, this is how the Bible proves itself to be very reliable over the years. In Isaiah is a prophet. He is writing of things that will come to be na hazijafika, but in the future zinakuwa zimetimizwa. Another person is Micah. Also Psalms and Isaiah again says the same thing. So in Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14, inasema, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and call him Emmanuel. So when Isaiah is writing about this Messiah who is going to come, anaandika kitu ambacho hajui kama itafanyika, lakini inafanyika hapo baadaye. There is a very small chance ya uandike kitu na ikuje kuhappen. So when God gives prophecies, it is a sign that this Bible has been reliable for very many years. Bwana sifiwe. So when Isaiah is writing, he's writing about a virgin who is going to conceive. Then when you go to Micah, I want you nataka uangalie vile Isaiah anaongea kuhusu yule ambaye atamleta Mwokozi, naye Micah anaongea about a different thing, lakini zote mbili zinaongelea kitu moja. So Micah anasema, Micah chapter 5 verse 2 anasema, but you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clan of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be a ruler over Israel, whose origin from the ancient times. So ukiangalia venye imeandikwa, these two people, nimekwambia imeandikwa over 1600 years by over 30 people, close to 40 people. Na imeandikwa in very different areas. So Isaiah akiandika kwamba huyu mwenye atazaliwa na virgin, then Micah anakuja anaandika kwenye atazaliwa Si anasema atazaliwa Bethlehem. What are the chances that hawa watu wawili waliandika vitu tofauti but writing about the same person? These people must have been inspired by the Holy Spirit. And Matthew, hawa watu wanaandika kitu chenye wanaandika in very different times. Unajua kuna wakati unafika unaweza sema kwamba tuseme tunajuana na Muhoro aseme kitu, we are living in the same age, so the chances yenye Muhoro atasema kitu na mimi nirudie tena, unaweza sema tuko in the same area, tuko in the same times, but ukiangalia watu kama Isaiah na Mika hawako in the same time, hawako in the same area, but wanaandika kitu ambayo inakuja kutimika hata kama haandiki the same thing, but they are still talking about the same person. And na hii in Isaiah 7 verse 14 inakuja kutimika katika Matthew chapter 1 verse 22 to 23, and the same also happens in Luke chapter 1 verse 30 to 35. Si tunajua ikifika kwa Gospels it is a virgin who comes na ana give birth, Virgin Mary anakuja ana give birth to Jesus. So there is no way that this would have happened if these things were not to be true. So when we come to our leadership life as readers, you know there is one thing that is very, very vital in our lives, that we need to give information that is true. If you are a leader, then you must give that information that is true. The next thing is you are supposed to give information that is consistent. And this consistency, when you combine consistency and truth, it gives birth to reliability. Unajua naweza kuwa nasema mambo ambayo si ya ukweli. Nikisema mambo ambayo si ya ukweli for a very long time, that will not translate to reliability. Because after all kenye nasema si ya ukweli. Lakini Biblia over the time imekuwa ikiprove itself that when it says that there will be someone who will mwenye atakuja na atazaliwa by a Virgin Mary, then Mika anakuja anasema atazaliwa from Bethlehem. It is true, it is consistent, it does not contradict itself, na inakuja na inatimia. When you look at Isaiah, kuna mahali inasema chapter 55 from verse 3 to 5. He was despised and was rejected by humankind, a man of suffering with familiar pain. 53 verse 3. Sorry for that. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, like one from whom men hid their faces. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Verse 4. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. This is the kind of translation yenye huwa inasema he was beaten for our own transgressions. There is no way these writers wangejua kwamba kama sio Mungu alikuwa anawapatia that kind of revelation, there is no way this thing would have come to happen. I want you to take an example. You see how vile hii kitu ni ngumu. Tuseme huwa unafanya kitu, tuseme umeenda mahali na umefanya kitu mara kama 3 and hujaifanya mara 7. That adds up to umeifanya mara 3 na hujaifanya mara 7. That adds to 10. So what is the probability that you are going to do that thing? Ini hesabu kidogo. Sitaifanya ikuwe ngumu. So the probability that you are going to do it itakuwa 3 out of 7. the probability that you are not going to do it will be 7 out of 10. So when the Bible consistently inakuja ikifanya na vitu zikifanyika, and I want you to ni vile tu siwezi fanya hizo hesabu za probability into complex juu ya the kind of complexities zinakuwa kwa statistics. You will have to combine the probability ya kwamba hizi prophecies zingekuja kuwa true, the probability ya kwamba hawa watu waliishi in different times, and the probability that it was written by different people. It is a crazy number. I think it is 1 times 10 to the power of 7. Billions and billions of numbers. It is not possible. Haiwezekani. So, as a reader, hata kama you are in different circumstances, the result of everything that you do must add up to the same thing. Whether you are saying that the Virgin Mary will be born, or whether you are saying that he will be born in Bethlehem, lazima tu ita add up to the same thing. I want you to take an example, unaona, to show you how hard it is to lie. When you lie, ukidanganya, inakuanga ngumu sana. But ukisema ukweli inakuwa rahisi. Take an example, umedanganya leo na umesahau. Kukumbuka hiyo kitu inakuanga so hard. Alafu kuna wakati mwingine unaweza enda useme kitu i-contradict kenye ulisema. Lakini ukisema ukweli as a leader and you are consistent, you add up to being a reliable person. Such that niliambia nini? Tuseme nimeambia Muhoroni kuna computer maybe ya red ama ya blue. Hata sihitaji kukumbuka kani nilimwambia ni ya red. Sinajua computer iko. Sinajua ni ya red. So akiniuliza Noria niambie uko na computer, nimwambie ya niko nayo. The next time I don't have to repeat that ilikuwa ya red. Nitamwambia inakuanga na battery kama 2. It is still true. Ni ukweli. So I don't have even to remember kama ilikuwa ya red ama ya blue. The context will replace it. Akikuja angalie apate ni ya red na apate bado iko na battery 2, it will still add up to the same thing. Lakini kudanganya ni ngumu. And that is why we are supposed to avoid it as readers. Unaonanga mtu, and this happens, ina happen a lot of times in politics. Mtu anakuja anapeana rhetorics leo, anasahau, anaenda political rally ingine, anasema kitu ingine. And then it becomes very complicated. Sasa inakuwa, that is a point ya kuweza kumpiga. Kila siku kumpiga. But as Christians, the other, when you look at Psalms, as we depart from this, when you look at Psalms, the psalmist is saying, chapter 22, verse 16, dogs surround me, a pack of villains encircle me. They pierce me, they divide my clothes and cast lots for my garments. Where does that happen? In John chapter 19, verse 22 to 24. Yani, psalmist, he had no way. Yeye alikuwa na prophesy through the spirit ya kwamba Yesu atauliwa na watagawana nguo zake. Na hiyo kitu na ikakuja na ikafanyika. Let's move from that. Another interesting thing that happens in the Bible is the kind of way that the Bible presents the names of people. Najua unajiuliza kwani majina ya watu iko na nini? They are called, point 2 is this qualifiers for popular names. Hii hata naweza kuambia ufungue your Bible in any page you would like. This is what happens. Maybe you can read from maybe Matthew chapter 21 verse 11. We see what the kind of names zinapatianwa katika hiyo kitabu. The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Sasa let us put this one into context. Kwa nini alisema it is the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee. When you look at your history, the name Jesus, Yeshua, ilikuwa a common name katika Israel. Ndio tujue which Yeshua tunaongelea, tutafanya nini? Okay, do we have Johns in the house? Naona John mmoja huko nyuma. Kuna John mwingine? Kuna John mwingine? Sasa nikikuja hapa niseme na nataka John akuje. Ni John mgani atakuja? Wote watakuja. But how do we put that? Tutajua aje tunaongelea John mgani? Lakini nikikuja niseme John Mek akuje hapa, nani atakuja? So sasa tukitaka kujua tunaongelea Yesu mgani? Juu kulikuwa na Yesu wengi. Kulikuwa na James wengi. Kulikuwa na Philips wengi. Although Philip, let me look at something here. Nikwambie ni majina gani zilikuwa the most common. The most common names were any name. Okay. The most common names were Simon. That was the most common name kwa hiyo wakati. The other name that was common, which is almost number 3 in common, being common, is Judas. John follows closely, Matthew and James. Now, this is what happens. The name Philip, it was number 61 in being common. Sasa tuseme, nimeandika kitabu. How do you know that it is true? Nimeandika kitabu na naibase in the 1900s. Alafu niite mtu Jayden Mohoro. Do you see what the confusion that brings? But nikiita mtu in the miaka ya 2011, 2020 na nimuite Jayden, unasema yenyewe that one iko kwa hiyo context ya hii miaka. You do not expect the name Jayden itokee mara mingi hiyo miaka ya kitambo. But uta expect majina kama Mbogwa, which is my name, in the 1990s na huko utapata hiyo jina. Lakini ukianza kutaja majina kama kina Leon na Jayden, then that puts you out of context. Another thing that makes this very important. Assume you are in Nairobi. Umeingia gari. Umeuliza kufika Kasarani ni pesa ngapi? Ukaambiwa ni 30 bob. Automatically unajua ni 30 Kenyan. Now translate that thing uende Namanga. Uingie basi. Uambiwe ni 100. What will you ask next? 100 ya Kenya ama 100 ya Tanzania? So it is so important, and this is important in areas as a leader. You must make sure that you are very specific with what you are saying. Umewaipatiwa instruction na mtu, ukarudi kwake ukamuuliza, unajua amekuambia kitu, unamuuliza further details. Hebu nielezee further. Like you need to be very specific in what you are saying. You must give very specific details so that you avoid confusion for those that you are leading. Either way, they'll just come back to you, wakuulize, na hapa ulisema nini, add more details. That is why the Bible is so specific. Actually, the Bible is so accurate, iko accurate kuliko historians. There is a historian who is called Tacitus. To give you a context of who that person is, there was a leader called Tiberius. Tacitus alikuwa propagandist wake. This is what he says about Christians. He says that Christians, they derive their name from a person called Christus. But the Bible in Acts inasema sisi tuliderive our identity because of what Christ and the personality of Christ was. So the Bible is so accurate, it is accurate more than even historians. Actually, in the book of Luke, kuna mahali historians walikuwa wanafikiria he was wrong because he had given anaita I think it is Pontius Pilate, anamuita I don't know whether I can remember the title that anampatia. I think alikuwa governor, but wao wanampatia a wrong title. Lakini the Bible is so accurate such that it is correcting other historical figures. Actually, the name, when you look at ukiangalia jina Moses, to know how accurate the Bible is, it is derived, inatoka kwa majina ya Kimisri. Unajua vile wakati alipoishi na Wamisri katika ameishi kwa the palace, hapo ndio hiyo jina inatoka, and that is why most of the time hautapata akiekewa qualifiers. There is when you look at as we move to know, nimekwambia John was a very common name, and that is why they have to add the name John the Baptist, because you won't know who ni John mgani tunaongelea. And when Luke anaanza kuandika kitabu ya Luka, he is very specific that he is going to give a detailed account. Why? Because the kind of environment yenye ilikuwa wakati huo ilikuwa a very harsh environment whereby Christianity ilikuwa inapigwa sana. Kwa hivyo making a small mistake like this ingekuwa ni an avenue for Christianity to be beaten. So in short, when you are in your leadership, when you are leading people, on where you are making people to move a certain direction, make sure that you give them the correct details. Make sure that you are very specific about what you are telling them, lest they come back to you and ask you about what you meant. Hiyo ulikuwa unatuambia nini? Tuongoze in this way. The other thing, number 3, what the Bible why the Bible is very reliable and why we should follow it as readers. The Bible does not try to make sense of its heroes. It does not try to correct the culture. It does not try to correct the flaws. Vile mtu ameumbwa, Biblia inamleta hivyo hivyo. So let us look at an example. Angalia maisha ya Daudi. When you are making a movie, in an example, when you are making a movie, unaangalianga venye wana try to package the starling or the main character as perfect, flawless, yani ananga makosa. Yeye akipatana na watu 100 amewapiga wote. Akiingia kwa gari ikiroar anachomoka. Yani anatengenezwa in such a perfect way that they don't want yule mtu ambaye ana act hiyo movie akae ni kama anakaa vibaya. But the Bible is very different. And by the way, you'll notice that in other religious texts, wanajaribu kutengeneza their main, ama whoever they revere so much, to look like he's very perfect. So, when the Bible talks about David being a man after God's heart, would you call that person a man after God's heart? After everything that he did to Uriah? No, you can't. But the Bible, being inspired by God, haijaribu kutengeneza ati akae vizuri. The Bible accepts those people as the way they are. Yani inawakubali tu na makosa yao. Unaangalia mtu kama Abraham, anaenda na anachukua mjakazi wake. But the Bible does not condemn him. It brings him, because the main purpose of the Bible is to bring people and be transformed through Christ. So it does not try na haijaribu kuwatengeneza wakuwe perfect. The other time Abraham anaenda na anaanza kunini, anafika mahali anaogopa wife yake anaweza ibiwa. So he resorts to kudanganya. Anasema, this is my sister. But God does not judge him on the account of him having those flaws. He takes Paul and makes him to be the biggest evangelist that you ever know. Anaandika hizo vitabu zote. But look at the past of Saul. Anakuja anabadilishwa, anakuwa, yani anaandika vitabu ambazo zinafuatwa na makanisa mengi. And he once was a killer. The other day, Pastor Alex alikuwa anatuambia that Saul alikuwa, he's the one actually who orchestrated the killing of Stephen, because he was the one who was persecuting Christians. But God takes him, turns him around, and makes him perfect in his ways. Na anakuwa mtu mzuri. So the Bible does not try to correct. Yani ati unajua it was in the watu wenye walikuwa wanaandika Biblia, if they were not led by the Spirit, wangesema hapana, na Abraham hawezi fanya hivyo. Hiyo kitu itakaa vibaya. Na David hawezi fanya hivyo. Hiyo kitu itakaa vibaya. Like Biblia itatokea in a very bad light. But God hajaribu kutengeneza hizo vitu. The same way that this translates to our own lives. You don't have to be perfect. As a leader, you don't have to be perfect. The other day, Pastor Alex was telling us that the person who made these bulbs did things over 999 times. Mpaka akafika to the perfect time. The key in being leading a good life and being in line with God is not falling ati umeanguka ati umekuwa mbaya, because you are a leader umemake mistake imekuwa ati sasa you are not any leader anymore. The main objective is you to fall and rise. And I wanted to show you how ridiculous it is. Yani inakaa too funny. You know, let us compare two things. Umechukua biashara, umeifanya, ama umeanzisha kitu na imeanguka, and then you just give up. Let us compare that to a child. It is like a child amekimbia akaanguka na akasema hata wewe amka tena. Si huyo mtoto sasa ni umpeleke hospitali. Juu sasa ameanguka na amekataa kuamka. It is very strange. So as a leader, it doesn't mean that you are supposed to be perfect. Actually, maybe as tukiendelea kusoma the manual, utapata kwamba kuna mahali Daudi alifanya makosa, akahesabu majeshi, na Mungu hakuwa anataka kitu kama hiyo. But when you look at it deeply, you will notice that the attitude that was behind it was very wrong. Unajua umepiga watu, alafu unafika mahali unaona ni kama the strength of your armies is the one that leads you. So in spite of our flaws ama mambo ambayo yako na shida katika maisha yetu, the key is not to kuachilia ama to just give up or just put a bad attitude. Ati sasa imeisha, ni mimi nilikuwa napigana na ni mimi I'm the king here. It is leaving everything to God, because God is the one who gives us strength. God is the one who makes us perfect. Your work is kuanguka na kuamka na kuendelea. And the kind of attitude you see from David, alienda na akasema, let me fall in your hands. Wacha nianguke kwa mikono yako. So anything that you do na unaona ni kama iko na shida, the key ni unarudi kwa Mungu. Bwana asifiwe. Are we still together? So we have looked at Abraham. The other person that you can see that is making those mistakes is the likes of Peter. Peter is so close to Jesus, but at some point he comes and denies him. But what happens after Peter comes out of that, anatoka kwa hiyo makosa ambayo alikuwa amefanya. He is actually referred to as the first pope, because Jesus built his church using him. Bwana asifiwe. When the Pentecost is happening, you cannot compare the kind of Peter that was denying him and the kind of Peter that was preaching the gospel. So falling does not mean that you be there forever. And that does not mean that you will not be a leader once more. You are still a leader. It is just a mistake. You unasimama na unasonga. So when you make a mistake, just continue leading your people. Make them to go to the correct ways. And make sure that you are making corrections to yourself. The other thing that happens in the Bible is undesigned coincidences. Yani vitu zinafanya, but they complement each other along the way. This is what happens. In the kwa ile when Jesus is feeding the 5,000, maybe you can check for us what Luke says about the feeding of the 5,000. And then you look baadaye utatuangalilia kwa John. I want what I'm trying to say. The feeding of the 5,000 from Luke, maybe I think it's Luke chapter 9. Luke chapter 9, okay. Can we, maybe you can start from verse 10. Then when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom and healed those who needed healing. Let's go to John. What does John say about the same account? Maybe I think it's chapter 6. Sometimes after this, Jesus crossed to far shores, Sea of Galilee. This is the sea. And the crowd of the people followed him because they saw miraculous signs. Next, there's something I'm looking at. Next. The next one. Yeah, this one. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people?" Go back to Luke chapter 9, verse 10. And you tell me what is common about this. When the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him and withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. Let's now go to John chapter 1, verse 44. I want us to combine the three. John chapter 1, verse 44. Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. So what is Luke telling us? Luke is telling us, anatuelezea the location. Then John comes and tells us that Jesus asks who? Philip. And where is Philip from? Bethsaida. So this is a very undesigned coincidence that Luke anasema kwenye Yesu alikuwa na wafeed. Inakuja na inakuwa confirmed by John. John who says that Yesu aliuliza nani? Philip. So I want to ask you, kama kungekuwa maybe tumetengeneza mkutano mahali hapa, then there comes a stranger na anataka kununulia watu kitu. Who is the most likeliest person atauliza? Mtu mwenye alikuja na yeye ama mtu mwenye amepata huku? Mwenye amepata huku. Why? Because this person knows the environment within. So when Luke is saying that Jesus alifeed watu in Bethsaida, John is telling us that he fed them. Luke is telling us he fed them from Bethsaida, and then John is telling us that he asked Philip. Philip, who was from where? Bethsaida. It is such an undesigned coincidence that Luke aliandika in a different time than when John was being written. So they are giving different accounts, but when you read them together, zinapeana a same story. So there is no way that the Bible would be reliable if those things contradicted themselves. So the Bible is still continuing to be consistent. It is showing itself to be consistent over and over again. Whether it was written by different people at different times, at different places, actually the kind of content that is being written here inaandikwa to complement each other. Actually, hata unaweza soma hizo verses together. Useme that Philip, who was from Bethsaida, and Jesus asked him, where can we buy bread because you are from Bethsaida? And this meeting happens still in Bethsaida. So it is complementing itself. There is no way that this would happen if the Bible was not true. So ukiangalia vile Biblia inaandikwa na vile inaendelea ikitengenezwa na vile the Holy Spirit continues to inspire people, there is no way that this would happen if God was not in it. So, as readers, there are things, it speaks actually to the same thing of being consistent and giving details that are very relevant to the context that you are speaking in. So when you make things and when you speak to things, make sure that you are giving same account all through. Because at one point, someone will still question you, what happened here? What happened in this other area? So make sure that you are making everything and in every context to be same. Bwana asifiwe. So let us try to make sure that even when we are leading people, we are making sure that everything is in its own context. When there are other different coincidences in the Bible, unajua utafungua these, you'll open different areas of the Bible and you still see the same thing that is following each other. When ukiangalia hata Kings na Chronicles, there are details that are in Chronicles that are not in Kings, but they still complement each other. When you read it, actually, hata wachana in spirituality, historically, the timelines do not contradict each other. Zinaendelea zikiingia pamoja. They form the same block. There is something that scholars wa Biblia huwa wanasema. Biblia ni kama puzzle. Now assume you have a puzzle that is supposed to have 100 pieces, but you have 99 of them. And then you assume you have the same puzzle, you have 100, inafaa kuwa na 100 pieces, but you have 110. Which one is better? It is a puzzle yenye inafaa kuwa na 100, but uko na 110. This means that you will be able to fit the puzzle very well, ijae 100 na uweze kutoa zile ambazo hazifai 10. Lakini ukiwa na 99, utaweka, then you'll be missing one. And that is how the Bible is so popular. The other thing is that the Bible is so popular that it beats the person of Jesus has been written on by so many authors that it is not. He must have been a very, very important figure in his time. Now look at this. Jesus hakuwa na any authority in the government. True or not true? It is true. But people like Tiberius ambao walikuwa kwa hizo na kina Caiaphas and those ambao walikuwa kwa hizo nini leadership, they have been written, mambo yao yameandikwa na watu wengi sana. Like Tiberius, there are 4 authors ambao wameandika kumhusu. There is one, I think it is Josephus, there is Tacitus, there is the other 2 ambao I'm trying to remember their names. But the kind of literature ambayo imeandikwa kuwahusu is so vast, na ukiiweka in comparison with Jesus and the time he lived, wako na the same kind of literature. Jesus has been written about by very many authors, yet he had no authority, ama hakuwa na hiyo earthly authority. You know, the Jews walikuwa wana expect Yesu akuje akiwa kama kiongozi, emperor. That is why hata wasikizani na Jews, because they expect an earthly king. But when you compare Jesus and someone like Tiberius anaandikwa, his literature imeandikwa na watu wengi, such that you'd think Jesus was in the same level na mtu kama Tiberius. Then this person must be so influential that these other people, kama huyo propagandist wa Tiberius, he saw it fit to write about Jesus. So, when you look at the way we live, sometimes authority does not come from positions. The fact that these propagandists and these watu ambao wanaandika biographies za emperors wanaandika kuhusu Jesus, that means he was very influential in his own capacity, in leading people, in guiding people in the correct ways, such that they saw it fit to write about him. So ukiangalia maisha yako as a leader, you can make influence even in little ways. Mahali ambapo uko, si lazima upatiwe cheo. Even Jesus is saying that the least will be the greatest. You have to be humble. You have to nikisema humble si kumaanisha watu wakutumie vibaya. Bwana asifiwe. You just have to do things that ziko na impact. Like Jesus used to move from one area to another, preaching, doing miracles without even wanting recognition. Tunaweza kuja hapa, I'm sure kuna mtu alikuwa hapa na akapanga hizi viti. Kuna mtu alikuwa hapa na aka make sure the sound is checked well. Kuna mtu wako hapa ana make sure that this service is running the way it is supposed to. On Tuesday, there is one thing I want to commend Muhoro about. Hakuna siku nimewahi kuja is unless ako na apology, ama alisema hata kuwa, ama ameshikika na kitu very very important. He must be here on Tuesday, he is here on Wednesday, he is here on Friday, on Sunday he is here kwa practice ya choir. Such kind of a dedication. Si lazima ukue kwa nini kwa hiyo level. Actually walikuwa wanaita Yesu, the local name was Rabbi. He was just a teacher, and he was associated with a carpenter. So kumaanisha at any level you can still make impact. Yani he is racing with emperors while he had no political power. It's the same thing that Pastor Alex does. He impacts life, yet he is not in the government. You know, you think Pastor Alex and MCA, MP na governor wanafaa kuwa mbele yake, yani wakifanya vitu kubwa kubwa. But he is touching lives at the lowest level, making impact in the society, that while he still has no those political powers and that kind of a big capitation. So in short, if you are a leader, you don't need even recognition. Si lazima tukuite bishop ndio uweze kuokoa lives za watu. Si lazima tukuite evangelist ndio uweze kupreach to your neighbor. It comes from within you. And when you remember that it is a great, we have been commissioned by Christ to make followers out of people and bring them into his kingdom, then we remember the bigger picture. We, as readers, we are not supposed to be driven by our desires. It is the bigger picture. It is what we do to generation. It is how many lives that we transform that is supposed to make us do everything that we do. So, ukiwa mahali ambapo popote upo, just like Jesus, just like his disciples, you know the kind of terrain that these people are working in. Yani, the government doesn't even want you around. Haikutaki around. And we are so blessed that the government haipingi kanisa. Sini ukweli. We are in this country, the government is not so harsh to the church, but there are still people in other areas, in other countries, ambao serikali ikisikia uko na Biblia, hiyo ni makosa kubwa sana. Ikisikia mko na gathering ya fellowship, hiyo ni makosa ingine. Lakini in this country we have been blessed so much that we have the freedom. So that means we can make difference. There was something as I was looking at. I can't remember. I think it was a movie or maybe a reality show. Watu wamekuwa so restricted not to practice Christianity, they have to make fellowship at night. Alafu Biblia mnaombana juu hamtaki zikuwe mingi. So wewe tukipatana kwako usiku tunakuachia hiyo Biblia. Next time tukipatana kwa mwingine tunamwachia. Hiyo siku nyingine tukipatana kwa mwingine tunamwachia pia. Kwa sababu the environment is so strict that you can't do anything. But God has given us a lot of, ametupatia vipawa. The other time I was telling some people somewhere that Mungu akikuleta kwa hii dunia, alikuleta ukiwa full package. Miles Monroe huwa anasema that God brought you as a full package. You are tested from heaven. He released you to this world to make impact. I know uko na simu yako. Na nilikuwa naambia some people that if you have your phone na unatupatane na wewe kwa forest ukitumia kama torch, sisi hata hatuna shida na wewe. Alafu wewe hata haujui kama inapiganga simu, haujui kama inaingianga internet. Ni sawa unatumia hiyo simu, lakini if you knew the kind of power that gadget you hold iko nayo is very immense. And I want to assure you that God is a manufacturer of us. He has put his name on us. Alikuwa anasema kwamba the last thing that is huwa inawekwa kwa any product ni logo. Na ukiekewa logo, that means huyo mwenye ametengeneza hiyo kitu, he has trusted that thing with all his life. We have the identity of Christ. He has put his logo on us. I was working somewhere. Tulikuwa tunaweka products. I won't say the company, but tulikuwa tunaweka biogas. So hii biogas ilikuwa inatengenezewa Israel. Ilikuwa inakuja ikiwa a full package. And the company used to send people to Israel to witness as it's being ikiwa inatestiwa. Inawekwa the waste, inaonyeshana venye imetoa moto, ukiwasha venye huo unawasha, whether unatumia kiberiti ama ni ile spark, it does it. Inatestiwa all through, inaangaliwa kama iko na manure, na hiyo manure inakuza hizo vitu, such that ikikuja hata Kenya, we used kutengeneza a prototype. So ungeenda kwa headquarter, ungepata 2 zikiwa zimewekwa side by side. And it does everything that imeambiwa kwa ile manual yenye tulikuwa tunapatiana. So wakati mkulima angepiga tu hivi simu aseme haifanyi, you know what kind of impact that has? Anasema leo tukose kwenda, kesho ambie neighbor anza kusema hata yangu imepunguza moto, imefanya nini. Actually that's what we do. God is so protective of us as readers that whatever we do, he backs it with a lot of force such that he wants you to succeed. He wants every one of us to succeed. And one thing that as venye tumeangalia from point one, the Bible being written by very many people from very many places, undefined coincidences, he is consistent from the beginning, such that ukisema unataka kitu fulani ifanyike, ya muhimu ni ikue kwa manyo. There is one time tulienda mkulima fulani akatuambia, nimesikia biogas zingine zinawasha bulb. Now this is the beauty of it. Our manual haisemangi zetu zinawashanga bulb. So tulikuwa tunamwambia, tukikufunza ukiangalia manual, kuna mali uliona kama ilikuwa inawasha bulb? Haikuwa. Yetu tulisema ni ya kuwasha moto, kupika, itatoa manyua, utaweka kwa nini, kwa shamba. Further than that, going further, si ati uchukue manyua ukuje umwage ni kama kwa Kikuyu tunasemanga kiundudho. Unakuja kama umemwaga ni kama there is no plan. There was a plan. Unaambiwa 1 liter for this size of our shamba, of our land. So it is all about kufuata the manual. It is all about the assurance that God has made us with all the ability. It is the assurance that he has been consistent from the start. It is the assurance that he doesn't use people ambao wako perfect. In fact, when you look at Gideon, I want you to look at Gideon, a very, very, very mtu coward sana. Allow me to use that nini. Anaambia Mungu, sawa nimeweka a rag outside, ikuwe na maji na asubuhi nipate nyasi hazina maji. Anamwambia acha turudi tena, hiyo sijaamini. Kesho nyasi ikuwe na maji na ragi sikuwe na nini na unyevu. Then God does it. But to prove to Gideon that he is the one who has all the power, anamwambia mkienda kukunywa maji, wale watakunywa na style ambayo haifai uwatoe. Anabaki na watu wangapi? Around 300. Bwana asifiwe. And God uses them to prove what? It is not the numbers. It is me who gives you strength. When David, ile nilikuwa naambia, when David was alienda kuhesabu watu, God is a jealous God. He doesn't share glory with anyone. So ukianza kuona ni kama ni majeshi, is going automatically to disorient you because he doesn't share that glory. So even as readers, remember that our God has been consistent from the first day. He doesn't share glory with anyone. He makes things and he has been consistent over and over again. If you want to prove, you just go and read your history books. If you want to prove that God is real, because he has been consistent over and over again. So let us tushikilie hiyo kwamba amekuwa ni wa kusema ukweli. Kama sisi ni viongozi, acha tuseme ukweli, wacha tukue consistent and be reliable. The titles do not mean anything to anyone. You can impact life at any level. If you are saying something, even if you say it tomorrow, we can confirm that thing with whatever you said it yesterday, and you don't have to remember it again. And remember that even in your flaws, God still values you. So Mungu atubariki sana. We can stand. As I allow Pastor Peter to continue from there. God bless you so much.